So understanding these three golden rules will allow you to learn to get to know people for who they really are, not their appearance. To learn to see reality, to see the person who's in front of you rather than seeing a projection, and to understand the right and proper way to create and maintain a connection with a guy. And I'm gonna explain these three golden rules and how to apply it and how you might be breaking it in very, very deep detail. And if you want to learn more about this, I have a course for women, which is called the Psychological Game of Attraction and Natural Chemistry. It's a course that or two courses that I specifically made to help women learn how to attract and maintain the guys that they meet. Because a lot of the times, you guys will meet a guy and he's a great person, but because of your insecurities, you end up pushing him away. I pretty much teach you how to avoid that. All right. So let's begin this. So look, first things first. All right. Learn the first rule is not judging things by appearances. Right? Learning not to judge appearances. Never trust what you see with your eye. Always focus on people's actions, all right, rather than their words. And learn not to categorize people that you meet instantly, right? Why? Because learning to focus on actions and not words, you're learning to pretty much judge people's behavior rather than the words that they say, right? Because by naturally, humans have a natural fear of death, all right? And one of the ways that humans deal with the fear of death is by not updating the way people change over time, by keeping a stagnant view of time where you don't update them, right? And you don't pay attention to how people's character changes over time. That's a way to almost like stop time itself. So what you want to do is don't look at people's charity, how they don't look at people's words and public acts that are deemed positive, right? Because public acts, anything that's done in the social realm, is pretty much for appearances for the most part. You want to focus more on the negative acts and how negative they are, because that says more about the person. The good things that people do in public really shouldn't be used to judge them. What you should use to judge people is the severity of the negative things that they do, because those things they can't control. So that says a lot more about their character than the positive things that they say, right? And also, don't let a person's innocence fool you into letting your guard down, okay? Especially when you first meet people. Just because somebody looks 100% perfect and harmless doesn't mean that they are, all right? Because a lot of narcissists cloak themselves in sheep's clothing when in reality deep down they're wolves, right? Because and the way that they cloak themselves with innocence is through words, right? Because words are pretty much dust in your eyes to divert you from their behavior. The more a man says how good he is, the more a man talks about his good traits, the more you should look into to verify those acts, to verify what he's saying with actions. Always follow through with people who you initially meet, like a job that calls the references you give them. So things that you could do is just look at their social media, right? Find out people who hate them, find out exes who they had a bad breakup with, and ask them about them, especially people who they have a problem with, right? So that's one thing, right? Is learning not to judge appearances. So other ways to look through the appearances that they give you is by you showing weakness, right? Showing weakness and seeing how they react. You could talk about how something bad happened to you, like maybe you're somebody that was abused, as an example, right? Because when somebody sees your weaknesses and how they deal with your weaknesses says a lot about them. For example, let's just say you reveal something that's weak of yours, right? And then a week later, he comes back and uses it against you in an argument. Boom, now you saw the side of his character. Why? Because naturally humans aggressive side comes out when there's weakness in front of them and they know they're not going to get caught. That's when the mask slips off and they reveal their real side, right? But if they see your weakness and they never use it against you, that's a sign of their character. Other things that you could do to look through their appearances is irritate them to see how they react to those moments. Challenge their belief systems. Have an argument to see how they argue. Disagree with them. Make a joke at their expense and see how prickly they are, right? All of those things will reveal their character. Be unpredictable. By you being unpredictable, naturally makes them it makes uncontrollable emotions come out. Randomly canceling a date. Are they vindictive? Do they randomly cancel a date after you cancel a date? This will tell you part of their character, right? And like I said earlier, look into their past. If they talk about if they keep talking bad about their exes, find out, right? And also, if they really talk bad about their exes, that's a sign of their character. If they have no friends, find out why they have no friends, right? Find out why they keep getting fired, right? All of those things reveal their character. Ask their enemies about them, okay? So what you want to do is not focus on his words, but focus on his action. Also, since humans naturally judge appearances, because we are human animals and human animals are, it's too stressful to have to look into everything. It's too stressful to have to verify everything, to have to question everything that you see. We wouldn't be able to function. So we naturally have an automatic categorizing system and schema in our minds to save energy. And as a result, we are very susceptible to appearances. We are very susceptible to illusions, right? So what you want to do is use it to your advantage. Right? Learn to hide certain parts of your personality to people and reveal that part over time. Right? Learn to hide certain weaknesses at first, right? That and reveal it over time. Learn to hide some positive traits about you and reveal it over time. When you reveal everything too quick, it says insecurity. When you reveal things over time, it actually gives you more depth, more roundness, more depthness as a person. And it's actually a lot more attractive if they find the best things about you a little later on in the relationship. So that's one thing. Don't judge appearances. Learn to, if he looks like a perfect guy, step back. If he reminds you of somebody in your past, step back, right? You're pretty much projecting. So take a step back. Speaking of projecting, the next thing we want to do is don't let your emotions control how you see a person. Emotions guide us through our decision making, not our intellect. That's why some people don't know how they made friends. If you ask them, how did you make friends? They'll tell you, I just made friends. Or how they achieved something. It was an emotional compulsion. It wasn't a rational thing. Each emotion causes us to be ready to act based on the general gist of the situation. For example, fear, right? The emotion of fear. Let's say you're walking down the street and a friend randomly scares you. The fear response will create a reflexive action where you possibly could hit them. Right? That fear response causes that reflex of hitting, right? And so what happens is that automatically you hit them. Fear naturally causes a flood of blood in the arms and hands, right? In order to hit something to defend yourself. Why? Because over years of evolution and people who survived, that action of hitting something that makes you scared instantly has led to survival, right? So it has created a deep neural network in the brain through natural selection, so that everyone who is alive does that kind of movement, right? Not everyone, but most people. Right, it helped. Maybe some animals, when they see, for example, another example is some animals when they see certain foods, when they see a food, the reflex response is to automatically open its mouth and eat. Right, it's like an automatic response. Right, so you put something in the mouth of an alligator is not gonna say, time to eat. No, it's more like an automatic response. Right, at the thought of maybe eating something. So we have those automatic responses based on certain emotional states, right? So to humans, we want to be able to not have that automatic response, because we have transcended that because of our neocortex. We have now a middleman between the limbic system, right, and our awareness of the emotional response. And that middleman is pretty much the last part of your brain that developed, right? And that's the rational part of your brain. Our encounters socially are not shaped by our rational thought of them. They're really not. but more on our emotional circuitry. And now, so our the way that we respond to people are based on what we have experienced in life, and also based on what our ancestors have passed on to us. And those ancestors and our ancestors are pretty much responsible for those automatic responses based on emotions. So we are pretty much, as a result, prone to be deceived by appearances, right? We don't really, a lot of times we don't think about our judgment. We just see something, feel, and automatically perceive them based on the emotion, right? We don't really change. We have no control for most people how they perceive the world. Why? Because emotions are impulses to act based on what life throws at us. They're just impulses. Emotions come from the Latin word to move. In animal and children, you tend to see those emotions more clearly, but in more civilized society, you tend to see it more passive aggressively. And the reason why is because we as humans have two different minds, right? The emotional mind and the rational mind. The emotional mind is stronger because our emotions and intuitions guide us as we eat, or what as to what to eat, where to go, what friends to make. Almost similar to when you were a child, you weren't aware of that. All right, they use emotions back then for inspiration and rational thought to guide those inspirations, right? So if your mind is consistently reacting to what's in front of you, right? And not having any space to step back and say, oh, I'm making a quick judgment based on my insecurities, based on my past, right? Your strategies will be out of tune with the problems you're targeting, because you're possibly stuck in the past, seeing projections, having unfulfilled needs, and trying to use the person in front of you to fulfill those needs. And as a result, you pretty much change the way you pretty much are not seeing reality eyeball to eyeball. You're just seeing it through a projection, right? So so when you meet somebody and you judge them based on your insecurities, and they end up not being the person who you think they are, those kind of setbacks will pretty much destroy you from within, you know? So when setback happens, you pretty much want to learn to improvise based on the resources and your long-term goals, right? Don't improvise reactively. If somebody doesn't like you, if somebody doesn't appear based on who they are, don't just react with anger, with frustration, with resentment towards people, right? Learn to take a step back and say to yourself, how did I misinterpret the situation? How did I not see who this person was? What were the first signs that showed me who they really were from the beginning? Because this is going to take a lot, making mistakes in order to almost to reshape the apertures of how you see people and get a clearer picture. Right? You got to get through the gunk. You got to get through the projections. You got to get through all of those cloudy smokes that's pretty much fogging reality. Right? And the way that you do that is by not allowing the setbacks to stop you, right? And understanding that you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna misinterpret people, you're gonna let your emotions cloud what you see. But in that moment of making those mistakes, right? If you don't adjust when you make mistakes and not cry and complain, right? Your setbacks will deter you if you allow it to do that to you. Setbacks have a tendency to force us to learn new skills based on the limited resources that we have. Usually these skills are very important to the work. And when things go wrong, when you get played, when somebody hurts you, when somebody dumps you, when a guy or a girl that you're meeting completely disappoints you and you misinterpreted her, right? It is that moment that you analyze your mistakes so that you could prepare for the next person that you meet. And the next person that you meet, your eyes will be more open. You're going to be aware and attuned of certain patterns of deception a little bit better. And the more people that you meet, the more you keep your eyes open, the less you project, the clearer picture that you have of the person, and the easier it is for you to make a decision about whether or not this person is right for you, right? So what you want to do, let go of the past. And when I say let go of the past, I mean stop looking for a certain person in other people. Stop trying to fulfill a certain need you didn't fulfill as a kid through a certain person. And a lot of times we're not aware of that, right? So let go of the past and learn and be more realistic about your expectations. Lower your expectations with people because the expectations that you have a lot of times cloud your thinking. Lower your expectations, the more clearer picture do you get of this person that you're seeing. And by having low expectation, you're pretty much aligning yourself with reality. Because a lot of times the things that you're trying to work won't work out. Most often than not, the person who you're trying to get will not be the person for you. That's just how life is, right? But if you live in a little fantasy, in a little fantasy world where it's all sunshine and rainbows, right? You could easily lie to yourself that life is a fairy tale. And when you believe that, you're gonna project a bunch of things into the world where you only end up attracting narcissistic people who are ready to tell you the lies you want to believe. But when you have realistic expectations, what you'll notice is that they lower. You don't expect things to work out, not out of trauma, but out of rational thinking, right? When you go on a date with somebody, you pretty much say, okay, he might not call me back. Not because you're tired of dating, but because you just know that most things don't work out. And then you're able to see people a little bit more clearer. Because most things don't work out. And you learn to see patterns. Right? You'll be able to see patterns more quickly. Like, for example, you'll realize that people never do things just once. If a guy or girl cancels a date one time, they'll cancel it again. If somebody breaks up with you one time, there's most likely they're gonna break up with you again. If somebody cheats on you once, most likely he'll cheat on you again. And most likely you'll sort of want to get revenge and cheat on him too, right? These are patterns that if you're seeing what you want to see, you will never see, right? You just want to learn to stop seeing the world through a fog of emotion. So the next principle that you have to understand is the pain and pleasure principle, right? You got to understand pleasure is an emotion that people provide to make people happy, to bring them towards them,